not even just in Texas, in all states, and maybe even globally, that the trend has been going from kids being less obese to being more obese. And there's still a lot of solutions that we should, like, as a whole, try to go towards to try to fix that. So, maybe most of you might know this, but just in generally, like, how obesity is being considered as a term is that it's based off of BMI. So for a certain amount of age groups, maybe I'm 16, so for my age group, it's a specific number that you would have to follow. For me, it might be like considered underweight, or approximately at weight, or overweight. So what they do is they take the weight in pounds, divided by your height in inches, multiply that, square that, and then multiply it by 7.3. So specifically what this 7.3 is basically used a conversion from pounds to inches. So this helps to calculate you specifically as a BMI index. And just as a graphic right here to show you, if you're in specifically that age, 18.5, for my age specifically, you would be considered underweight. 18.5 to 22 point something would be considered normal, and so on. So this is basically how scientists and like research and studies are able to determine how you are specifically overweight, right? So both of the presented before, and specifically Allison also talked about how teen obesity is affecting kids and how we should take a mindset to like try to fix that specifically. This is how like they're being termed as well. So as I stated before, right? So these are all the southern states that have been like termed as like starting from 1999 all the way to 2017 itself. You can see that the overall trend starting from here going all the way to 2017 has just been nothing but increasing. And I feel like that's a really important problem that we should be addressing to see how we should get that trend to specifically decrease and overall gradually the amount of changes that we can bring. And so basically, the data might not be 100% correct, but we can see specifically that overall, and there's a lot of people that we know maybe specifically that they are becoming, our population as a whole is becoming more obese. Specifically, when we're talking about nutrition, you can see that 5.6% of like schools did not eat fruit or drink at 100% fruit juice during 7 days before the survey was given. 7.2% did not eat vegetables, 7.1% drank a candy bottle or a glass of soda. And you can just see that a majority of the population is eating not necessarily healthy or like giving diets that can specifically help them to become less obese or less overweight. Another really important thing that was physical activity. Physical activity, as our first speaker talked about, is a really, really important thing. And we see that 96% of kids who reported to the study said that students did take PE, and 51% of the schools did not allow students to exempt PE. And that's a really good trend that all the schools like across America are like going into, requiring their students to take at least some PE to give them any sort of outlet, because you can't really guarantee that students outside of school are even having any sort of physical outlet. And this is like the only way to guarantee it in some sort of way. And it's in PE itself is very important. And we can see that 4% of schools who reported data said that PE is equivalent for its schools in all grades and studies. And that is really something that stood out to me, meaning that they don't designate it by grade whatsoever, because for all schools and all grades, they're keeping it PE just the same. And that's really important because we should start promoting that from a very young age as well. And then another really important thing was just the school environment as a whole. So these statistics like really show why school lunch is not necessarily the best lunch as well. Because you can see 12% of students could purchase fruits at schools. That's like really an understatement, because like 12% of all schools that reported this study were the only ones that were even offering fruits or vegetables in their school lunches as a whole. And you can see 58% could not purchase soda pop or fruit drinks. And that is actually a really good segment. So we can see that school lunches are offering stuff that is good, but not necessarily overall their school lunches are not the best, because there's still stuff that really needs to be changed, and there's a trend that we should try to stop. So those were really important things. So specifically my views on all of this, right? So I'm just given a lot of statistics right now. So specifically my things, my like viewpoint on food is that school lunch and like access to drinks and snacks are not necessarily the healthiest for all the students that are in like their young and teenagers. And nutrition specifically, there's a lack of choice is what I feel. It's like when people are going to lunch, they go into the lunch lines, they get their lunch, but not necessarily, they don't really have a choice of what they want. Specifically, for our first speaker, when she was talking about PE, right? The girls maybe should have more of a choice of what they want to do specifically for PE. And I think the same idea can be implemented when we're going into lunches, because if you're not getting a choice on what you're going to be eating, you're not necessarily like choosing how you want your body to be specifically as well, because food is really important. And also it's physical activity. And exercise and physical education outside of school I felt was really limited. And as you can see, like maybe we should try to become more like athletic and as well, and maybe have more physical like fitness as well. And sleep was also a very, very important thing for me specifically as like high schoolers. I try not to, as best as I can, not to negotiate on the amount of like sleep I'm going to be having each night. But at times I really have to, because not necessarily because of school, but like other activities that I have to do as well. So I felt like nutrition and like health awareness in schools, specifically in my county, Fort Bend County, like in middle school we have classes to talk to like middle schoolers, specifically 7th graders, about how they can be taking care of themselves and have these health classes. And I'm not sure specifically how many classes have this, like how many schools have this implemented across our country, and I felt like this could be a really important thing to do. So maybe having like specific health classes as a part of their school day itself, just like daily, having students, like teachers check up on students how they're doing, specifically to teach them, not just to teach them, but like to give them an idea of how they should be treating their body and how overall it should be motivating themselves to make their own self-conscious choices. And this was a study that I saw from Scientific American that I thought was really, really interesting, not just for kids, but like all people. It specifically, a new theory says that ultra-processed foods, so like all these, like, we've probably seen a lot of these. There's a Hershey's Kit Kat bar, there's Frosted Flakes in the picture, there's a lot of other processed foods. They seem to be triggering like neural signals in your body that says that you need to develop more fat because of a reason. So it says that make us want to take more and more calories in. So the consumption of these foods is not necessarily the healthiest, and the reason why is because your brain is triggering signals that says you need to have more calories in order to compensate for it. And these bodies seem to distort signals between the gut and the brain that normally tells us that we're full, and these don't tell you that you're full. This can be like directly causing you to snack all the time. I mean, I see a lot of people, even my friends, maybe even myself, are like snacking a lot of the time, and because they're not eating a full diet, sometimes you might feel full, but that's because it's giving you a false sense that you're feeling full because you're eating all these ultra-processed foods at times, and you're not necessarily having a healthy diet like you should be, like you were. And physical activity. This is my school right here. This is a picture of like people performing in my school. I feel physical activity is like really promoted in my school a lot, and I feel like in other schools it should also be a main and very important thing that should be providing. And like the amount of awareness in physical activity, I feel is a little bit lacking in some schools, and that should be something that we really talk about. And just one other thing, I thought this was very, very important to talk about. So park access, like within the Texas system. So this is inside of my state, and this is the park near my home. And when they did a study saying that within a 10-minute walk, if everyone deserves to find it, only 38% of people in my entire state said that they had access to like 10 minutes within a workout park. And 36, 38, and 40% said that they had even had any sort of services to any sort of park to have any sort of physical fitness. But then, just the reverse of that, you can see like, I used to live in Minnesota, and the exact opposite, 96% of people said that they had access to a park within 10 minutes of their home. So it says that, this just goes to say that like a lot of states have the stuff that they need in order to promote physical fitness, but then there's states that can like take action to fix that in order to like go to other standards like Minnesota's having. Because here you can see it gives people the like the avenue and platform to have a lot of physical fitness that not necessarily all the states are going to have. So just finally, this is the one thing that I felt was kind of important. So my neighborhood has a complete lack of like a lot of physical fitness activities. It has some sort of like park, but I felt that it was really important for like not because there's a lot of kids in my neighborhood to like get them involved specifically in more physical fitness. And I thought a lot of kids in my neighborhood really enjoy the sport of basketball and like playing it. But in order to go play that, they would have to go to a lot of like long distance driving in order to even go see some sort of place like that. So I felt that was really important. So me and a couple of people in my neighborhood, we actually wrote to the homeowners association in our neighborhood to help like bring basketball and like other like courts into our own neighborhood in order for people to have more sort of physical fitness. And this is just like any sort of thing, anyone in their own neighborhood can like bring a part of this kind of initiative to like help children and like everyone else just get more and more. And just to like recap, school environments, I think like the beginning and starting of school recess, as like I think this is very common within all schools. As we go from elementary school to high school, the lack of physical fitness within the school day itself like completely diminishes, because in elementary school we had approximately 50 minutes to an hour just to like get sunshine and like get like physical fitness, and then as we get into high school, the entire day is like restricted within the school building. We don't go anywhere else. So that should be really addressed, and maybe like even some reforms can be made to high schools, specifically like higher education, to give students that sort of like physical fitness that they need throughout the school day for them to like be confident and improve that. And just to like conclude, I feel like the four most important things that you could probably take away are that food is very, very important, the quality of food, and that processed food and like over the processed foods shouldn't be really provided to like all kids in the school day itself, and we should be really addressing that. And physical activity, as I talked about before, is a really important thing that kids should be having than rest. I feel, so specifically, my school starts at 7:30 a.m. and gets out at 2:45. But I feel that that might not necessarily be the best, because although we're getting out at a really early time, the beginning of school is not like, students are not at their optimal functioning time. There's other schools and other states that start their school at approximately 8:30 and later, and I feel that that gives the students the most optimal time, and maybe starting so early might not be the best, and we should probably be getting a holistic view. And as I said before, for food and physical activity, we should be giving students a choice as to when they want to start school and when they feel that they'll be optimal performing in school. And finally, physical health education, as I talked about before, that really encompasses everything that we've been talking about today. And I feel that that should be really addressed in school, and we need to have more like awareness-oriented classes that help